So in last week's Parshas Re'eh, there's a few psukim that need a little bit of explanation. So let's take a quick look at. So in Perek Tes Vav, pasuk Daled, the pasuk says Ephes ki lo yivecha evyon ki varecha yivarecha Hashem ba'aretz shar Hashem elokecha nosin lecha nachal l'rishta. The pasuk says that you won't have any poor people. Now the word Ephes needs to be explained because it doesn't seem to connect to, and it's usually a connecting word, but it doesn't connect to what's talked about beforehand. So what is that? Why is it Ephes? But this says that the pasuk is telling us that you won't have poor. Now, if we just go down a little bit, it says ki yevecha evyon, when there is somebody who is destitute. Poor meaning evyon really usually means like a truly destitute person. So we already have that, which is a little bit makes you wonder. But even stronger, if we jump down to pasuk Yud Aleph, so we're not even going that far. It says ki lo yechdal evyon mikerev haaretz, that there won't be any poor, anyone who's destitute. I'm sorry, that there won't. It'll never stop. There'll always be. I didn't say that word. There'll always be evyonim. There'll always be those who are destitute, and therefore you have to give. Pasuch tiftach es yodecha la'achicha. So what's going on? One pasuk says there won't be. This pasuk says there will be. There'll always be those who are destitute. So let's start by looking at Rashi because he has an approach that's very gives us one approach to this. He says in pasuk Daled, Ephes ki lo yivecha evyon. Ulahalan hu omer, and he quotes that pasuk, kilo yechdal evyon. So, but he's asking, our question, or we're asking his question. So he says, Ella. So what's going on? Bisman sha'atem osim ratzono shamakom. When we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, we're keeping Torah mitzvos, evyonim ba'achirim. There'll only be non-Jewish evyonim, right? Within our ranks, there won't be, v'lo bechem, but not with us. Okay, so Rashi seems to be saying that the Ephes is telling us that there won't be the Ephes is telling us there won't be evyonim within you because you'll be blessed, but there will be evyonim within outside of your ranks, and that's what the pasuk in Yud Aleph is telling us, that there'll always be evyonim. Those are going to be the ones who are not within the Jewish ranks. Okay. As long as we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. Okay, that's the bracha that's Rashi's approach. Now we're going to see the Chavetz Chaim's approach, which is very different. But before we do that, let's just go back up to the top of this parsha, where the parsha with the pay, because it's all within Re'eh, where it starts, because the Chavetz Chaim is going to connect this the pasuk we were just looking at to what came before it. So the parsha starts out saying, "Aser ta'aser es kotvos zarecha hayotze esodeshana shana." That we have to give meiser, right? That's the first thing. Now, that's not the mitzvah of meiser. The mitzvah here is talking about the shana shana. You have to do, Tavshin Pei Gimel has to be done in Tavshin Pei Gimel. Tavshin Pei Dal has to be done Tavshin Pei. You can't start mixing and matching how you're giving meiser. You have to do it every year. Okay. So we start with Meiser. Then it says, so now we're talking about Meiser Sheni. So first we talked about Meiser Rishon, now we're talking about Meiser Sheni, that we would bring up to Yerushalayim. Then he says, all right, so then if you can't bring it up, you can put it for money, you can redeem it for money, and then you can bring the money up to Yerushalayim instead. And then he says, then the Psukim say, "V'alevi asher b'shorecha lo ta'azvenu, ki ein lo chelek v'nach lo imach mitzvah shlosh shanim." So now we get into when it's not a Meiser Sheni year, but the third and the sixth year, when it's a Meiser Ani year, then you have to give Meiser Ani. Okay, so once we get through all the maestros, then the psukim start talking about Mikhet Shava Shonim Tasa Shmita. Then we get into Shmita in the 7th year. But specifically, what it's talking about is V'zed Dvar Shmita Shemot Kol Baal Masha Yada, that the end of a Shmita year, the end of the Shmita cycle, we have to forgive the loans, and you're not allowed to go after your other Jews who you've loaned money to. You have to forgive them. However, the pasuk says that the non, if you lend to a non-Jew, that you're allowed to still collect even on Shemitah. That's a nachri tigos. Okay, and then it says, and then we are back to our pasuk efes kilo yihya becho evyon. No, the pasuk then says that, but there won't be an evyon. So let's look at the Chavetz Chaim, because he's going to look at that as a whole hemshech, and not even take a look at that pasuk down below that Rashi had brought in. So if we look at the Chavetz Chaim, he says, "V'tevas efes ein la biur lefi pshat hakosov." The efes doesn't seem to fit in as we started the conversation. It doesn't seem to fit. It's not connecting to what's before it. To ma shayach zeh la pasuk hakodem. V'Rashi pirish to hay efes koya pasuk shacharav haynu masai lo yiyeh becho evyon ki varech yivarechecha Hashem. And Rashi understands efes as meaning it's telling us when will there not be any evyonim. But he doesn't seem to like that because it's connecting it to a pasuk that's several psukim later. So he says v'nira lev ba'er b'pshuto. He says that there's more of a pashto so we can explain this pasuk, this efes. HaTorah hischila b'parsha hakodemis. So this is what we were just looking at. The Torah starts out, meaning that our piece is starting out with the previous parsha, aser to aser, right, all the way at the top of the parsha of giving meiser. V'achata lifnei Hashem elokecha meiser degonecha. Ein brashi da'akasav mayri b'shnei meisros. So this is what we were just looking at, but we saw it inside that the parsha starts out by talking about meiser rishon and meiser sheni. Meiser rishon u'sheni ve'achakach mitchila parshas ki sechalel aser the mayri behafrashas meiser ani. Right, then we saw that moved into meiser ani. B'shana hashlishis b'makam meiser sheni could appear Rashi sham. So hari de b'chol shana tzurich lahavish chomesh min hasadeh. So what's going on is that every year you end up having to be mafresh a 20th. 20% out of 20th, 20% of your field. Between the two maestros, between Meiser Rishon for the Levi and Meiser Sheni or Meiser Ani that you're going to either bring up to Yerushalayim or give to the Ani. That's the second Meiser, so that's the two of them combined to 20%. So 20% you're giving away. Excuse me. And he says that we understand the way the world works, that if you are a farmer, you're a Baal Hasada, you own a field, that your parnasa really becomes 20% of your entire field. Why? Because the other four parts end up going for the overhead of running your field, including buying the seed and doing that and paying your workers and all of that. So the rest of it is overhead. Now, how do we know this? Because in Parshas Vayigash, when we're talking about Yosef selling back to the Egyptians all of that grain from the 7 good years, and it says that how did they pay for that tvua that was in these silos? They paid from their own land, and that was a fifth. That was a fifth because that's what they had. That's what they had left. That's what they were able to pay until they exhausted their income, and then they had to literally give away their possessions as well. So from there we can see that that is your parnas. That's what you're left with is a fifth. Now, at the end, at the end of as we're going through our parsha here, it says after it goes through the maestros that we just said are going to be 20% as well, 10% plus 10%. So then Mikei Sheva Shonim Ta'aseh Shmita. Then we have Shemitah, then of 7 years. Hare did Nigra Me'esek Asada Chelik Shvi Levad Shnei Maestros and now. So now you have another seventh, right? Because every 7 years you are not making any money off of your field. So, over the course of time, you're talking about the seventh for every year. So the Nimsa de Balasada Mafsid Besacha Kol Korov L'Shlishi Sasada. So any given year, you can sort of figure out that it's around a third of your field that you're not that you're losing out, meaning that you're either Shemitah year or you're giving away the two meisers. So Im Kain Yomer HaOmer Chas v'Shalom, somebody might come to say Chas v'Shalom Sha'ayidei Mitzvahs HaTorah Lo Yuchal HaAdam L'Ishtaker Be'esek HaSodeh, that if I'm going to be a Shomer Torah mitzvahs, there's no way that I can make a living by being a farmer on my farm. Virak bekesef yachol laharviach, and I might think that it's only going to be with making money, business or something else, that I would be able to survive, to be able to make money. But then our same parsha goes into Shmitas Ksafim, where you have to give away the money that you loaned out. Right? We have a mitzvah of loaning the poor people money, helping them to start their own businesses or what have you. But at the end of the 7 years, you have to forgive all those loans. So lo yi goes as rayayun, you cannot collect that money anymore on Shemitah year. In Botuela. So now you're going to say to yourself, Chas v'Shalom, that even if I have money, I'm still it doesn't help, because I'm going to end up giving it away and forgiving it. So pen yomru haomer Chas v'Shalom sh'adam murchach lios evyon ayidei kiyum Torah. So somebody might come to the conclusion mistakenly that you're going to become destitute if you are mekayim the Torah. Because you already lost a third on your field. And anything that you own in terms of money, the Shemitah is going to also kill that off. So Al Kain, so what does the pasuk tell us? Say my Torah take off the Amra. It says right away, Ephes. No, don't think that. No, you are not going to become destitute. Rotzelomar. You will not become the reason that you become destitute. There's many ways that we can unfortunately make ourselves destitute. We see that people make bad decisions in life. There are many ways that Chafetz Chaim tells us that we could become destitute because of our poor decisions. But that's not the same as what the Psukim are telling us. Many Lo tihia evyon. But Baruch Hu promises us, from me doing my mitzvahs, you will not become destitute. Why? Because Hashem will bless you with everything that you do. Now, what does that mean? Hainu, shani etein lecha bracha v'tashim lecha sakol. I will always give back. I will fulfill what you've done. So rak im shemot tishma bekol. Only if you keep the mitzvahs. Hainu shebirach she. Birchosi tuluya davka b'kiyum Torah, but that's the bracha is talui in us keeping Torah. Ubecho inin sarich ha'adam leida. So in everything that we do, we have to understand sha'ayidei kiyum Torah lo tesovev lo chas v'sham shum reusa. Through kiyum Torah, we will never have any kind of evil that comes our way. V'im lefi einav niralo, and if it appears that way to you, nigram lo hefsed, that is, for some reasons a hefsed, a heavy loss comes to you. Torah, through that which you're doing and being mekayim the Torah. You will get a tova. Absolutely, Chafetz Chaim promises there'll be a tova from a different place. But let's look at his words carefully as to what he means by that. In Sanhedrin Sadites on the base, and he says that we can sweeten this by what he quotes the Gemara Sanhedrin that says Sha'amru al pasuk b'mishlei nefesh amal amlalo. a person who's a hungry person who's working, his the hunger will do the work for him. Ata amalo al haTorah b'makom zeh. This is what the Gemara says. If you are amel for Torah in one place, the haTorah omelas la b'mikra acher. The Torah will then work for you in another place. And the Gemara concludes that what that means is that if you're amel b'Torah, you will get schar in olam haba. So the Chofetz Chaim seems to be saying that HaKadosh Baruch Hu on the one hand is telling us we're not going to become destitute from the mitzvahs, but I think he's also telling us that it's not a promise that you will all become rich. We all understand that a frum lifestyle is expensive. But what he is saying to us is that whatever we're giving up in those riches, that will come back to us in olam haba. That we don't have to worry about. So we won't be destitute, but we also there's no guarantee we'll also be wealthy from what we do, the lifestyle that we choose. Now, that's a piece by the Chofetz Chaim. So that's how he understands Ephes, right? That's, you go through this whole thing, you look at yourself and it's like, wow, this is gonna kill me. All this Meiser and all this and the Shemitah and everything else. The Chofetz Chaim says, no, it's not going to. It's not gonna make you destitute. Now, there's a piece here there's all these notes on this Sefer Chofetz Chaim al Torah, and he brings down a beautiful story. So we'll just go through the story and then we'll end here. So he says, "V'lo." This is the person who wrote these notes. He says, "V'lo emna milahavi kan es asher amar HaChofetz Chaim le'achod minichbedei chutz la'aretz be'es haknisiya gedola Vienna." Vienna, yeah. So this is a story that he says that happened regarding the Chofetz Chaim, the first Knessia Gedola in 1923, 100 years ago. And it was around this time too. It's like literally about 100 years ago that the Chofetz Chaim and many other Gedolei Torah in Europe went to Vienna for this big Knessia. And he says, "Umaisha shahaya kachaya," and this here's a ma'aseh that happened in that during that conference. So the Chofetz Chaim is staying by somebody in Vienna, and somebody comes in to the person who's into this house and asks the Baal Habayis, "Can you please introduce me to the Chofetz Chaim?" And this is apparently an honorable fellow, somebody that was known, but he didn't know the Chofetz Chaim, and he wanted to be introduced. So v'im be'efshari lareshus l'shol oso she'ela lameshech chamisha ragayim, and please, I have a question. It'll take 5 minutes. Please introduce me so I can ask the Chofetz Chaim a question. So Baal Habayis knows the Vaksha had nichvat shahaya makiru mechbar. The Baal Habayis knew him and said, recognized him from before. Vahushivo Lamod Eis Al Yad Shulchan Sha'alav Sa'ada Chofetz Chaim. So he said, just stand right next to the table where the Chofetz Chaim is eating his meal. V'ivtiach latzigo lefonav tekev achar berchas hamazon laman yishalenu sheilaso. And he promised me, he said, I'll introduce you as soon as the Chofetz Chaim is done benching. So beintaim, his Chofetz Chaim lemor es hakpitel mizmar leDavid Hashem roi. Right, what we say at Shalashudis, the Chofetz Chaim, apparently that was his minhag, that he would say that kedarko bekodesh be'es achila. He would say that while he was eating. He'd go through that mizmar. See him as a pasuk achra, when he finished the last pasuk, ach tov v'chesed yirfuni kol yemei chayai, pana b'dvarim el ha'orech halaz. He turned to this guest who was waiting to be introduced to him. Chofetz Chaim lo ra'ohu v'lo hikirim odo. The Chofetz Chaim did not know him, didn't recognize him from before. And he says, Pliya atzumahi al David Melech Yisrael. This is such a pella, what David Melech is saying here. How can he say that Tov and Chesed should chase after him? How is this possible? That the two great things like Chesed and Tov and Chesed should chase after a person? When we think of a rodef, we think about a murderer, we think about a bandit, something like that's who chases after you. That's a rodef. We don't have Tov and Chesed. Hey, my wrote for him about Tov and Chesed. Ismail, what is this? That doesn't make any sense. That's not how the world works. It's not like the great things in the world that chase after you. It's the worst things in the world that chase after you. So Ela Shma Mina, the Chavetz Chaim says, how do we understand this? He says, no, it's coming to teach us something. Shalifamim Mizdamein, that there are times when this happens. Shenimelo ben Adam she'esek b'tov chesed na'aseh lo kerodev. There are times when you, as a person, are so osek in tov and chesed that they become, or they feel like they become a rodef to you. Mafsid me machzro v'od inyanam ke'ela. They can end up making you lose out on your own parnasa in other ways because you're so involved in chesed and tov. Vayetzer mifatehu lazniach es hamalacha sho tov v'chesed. And then the Yetzer Hara comes in and says, you should stop doing all this great Tov and Chesed because they're chasing away. You're spending so much time in Tov and Chesed, they're chasing away your parnasa and your ability to just make ends meet or do what you need to do in this world. So then what do? When the Yetzer Hara comes after you? David HaMelech al Vashalom lemar lo shema beni afilu im lefi daidcha hatov v'chesed hema rodfi moscha bechol zeh. This is what David HaMelech is telling you, said the Chavetz Chaim, that even when it feels like Tov and Chesed are coming and they're chasing you and they're causing you, other difficulties, don't desist, don't stop from doing the Tov and Chesed. Ella hispala, but David, this is how it always should be. They should always be chasing after me, the Tov and Chesed. And nothing bad will happen when you put all your strength and energy into Tov and Chesed. You will only be mekayim through it. You'll be sitting in the house of God for the rest of you, for all of your days. Once a Chavetz Chaim finished explaining this pasuk, Kam ha'oreach hazeh me'al shulchan u'pana ela balabais lekava b'mena brachas hafrada. This guest stood up, went back to the balabas, gave him said, thank you so much, and I'm gonna, give me a bracha. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna go back home now. So balabas toma ala machzeh maduhu memahir lelechas. What are you such a hurry to run? You wanted to ask the question. You haven't even asked your question yet. Masha haya bedaito lisho avo halo. He says with a smile on his face, the Chavetz Chaim answered my question without me even having to ask it. And then this Oreach talked to the Balabas and said, here's the backstory. He said, who has Shoel? This was my question. Misasek ze kama shonim beiro hechzakas Talmud Torah u'gemilas chasadim. He said, for many years in my city, I have been machzik, keeping the local Talmud Torah going and the gemach going for the anim. Asher ba'atzma yisad v'tafech. But and I became like it fell on me, and I became like the pillar that was keeping all that going. So most of my days are taken up by doing this, by the Talmud Torah and the Gemach. Until my friends started to yell at me. Until because my own business was starting to falter, and so my friends were telling me, "Stop doing this. You're gonna kill yourself." And you should turn it over. My friend said, "Turn it over to somebody else to take care of these things. It's killing you." To move on, but he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to take their advice. And his wife taught him, go ask the Chavetz Chaim, see what he thinks. So should you keep doing it, or should you turn it over to somebody else to have them run the Talmud Torah and the Gemach? Who yismacher b'yosu lebeis machshava prativ achar dvarav lo yeshno. After I heard what the Chofetz Chaim told me, that I should always hope that this is what happens, that Tov and Chesed are always going to be chasing me away, even if it's that I'm going to lose money off of it. That's how it should be, because Shifti Beves Hashem L'Orech Yamim. So he said, that's it. I'm going to keep doing it. That's what I'm supposed to be doing in this world. So that is the end of that story, and that's the Chofetz Chaim's take on how we should think about Tov and Chesed in our lives. All right, have a safe flight.